So in this session, we are going to talk about figurative language specifically. Yesterday, we discussed about four kinds of meaning, two uses of language, and about studying metaphor, simile, or symbol. Today, we will see figurative language. And what two important aspects that we have to keep in mind. First is that by doing this discussion, I. Richards is trying to answer to some people. Some people like those who are questioning the use of language in literature. To them, he is trying to answer. So he writes that how are we to explain? How are we to explain to those who see nothing in poetical language? Those who see nothing in poetical language, but a tissue of ridiculous exaggerations, childish fancies, ignorant conceits, and absurd symbolisms. In what way its sense is to be read? This many people who tend to question this all things. How are we to answer to them who are questioning this? That what sense does poetic language make? What is the use of all these wide symbolisms? And why are people doing such a terrible atrocity on other people by writing such a kind of poems and other kinds of things? So one purpose is to explain them that what is this language, and how the language of poetry should be studied. It is not a common language. It is not day-to-day conversation language. It is much a different language. Though in day-to-day conversation we might be using poetic language, even if we are not aware about that we are making poetical expressions, we might be using. So we become alert to that also, that well, in our day-to-day conversation also we use a lot of poetic language. And we understand that this also is the use of language. There are various uses of language. One is to convey the fact, one is to convey the truth, and that is what scientific use of language will do. But then there is also another language that is to make people feel something. Emotive use of language also is there. So that is one purpose that he wants to do. Second, and very interesting and very important, what he says here, four aspects he tries to study. Well, let me switch over to the another this one. Want to write something here. Okay, I hope yeah, okay. I think we have controlled the echo sound also now. And are you getting my voice clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So what we are trying to look here is the second part of writing this topic, that is about figurative language. And after talking about first thing, what he has done here, he comes to say that, let me clean up this image so I can see very clearly what is being visualized by all of you also. Okay. After saying in the first part that how to explain about the use of language in poetry. To those who are asking the questions that why this a stupid kind of conceits, or what are these conceits, what are these absurd symbols doing here? Why people don't speak in a very clear-cut, matter of fact style? Yeah, matter of fact. Why all this wild symbols, metaphors are utilized? That is the first concern that he is involved here. Secondly, what he wants to say here, secondly, here is that there are four types of misunderstanding. There are four types of misunderstanding that people normally have a problem with the language of poetry. I. Richards writes in yes, I. Richards writes in Figurative Language, four types of misunderstanding that are there. Who will help me note down these four types of misunderstanding? Yeah. It is mentioned on the blog. I hope you have opened the blog.
Yes, sir.
Anybody can help me?
Am I audible, sir?
Hi, yes, you are audible. Yeah.
Yes. First is that misunderstanding of the sense of poetry.
Misunderstanding of
Sense of poetry.
Misunderstanding of the sense. Yes, sense of poetry. Okay. First is, we can say, misunderstanding of the sense of poetry. Okay. And this happens normally because of careless intuitive reading. Yes, it happens as a result of careless or intuitive reading. Yeah. So when we do a careless, very quick, or intuitively we try to understand the language of poetry, at that time the misunderstanding of the sense of poetry may occur. Okay, second point. Yeah, second point. Yes.
Yes, sir. Second
Anybody?
is that over literal reading.
Over literal reading.
Reading.
Yeah.
Prosaic reading.
Over literal reading, or you can say prosaic reading. Yeah, over literal reading or prosaic reading. So I hope we can understand this, that the use of language in prose and use of language in poetry is different. That is what he wants to argue. So if you are reading a poem, you are not supposed to read it as if you are reading a prose. So otherwise it will be over literal reading of the poem. Okay, third one.
Defective scholarship.
Defective.
Yes, defective.
Okay, defective scholarship. And this is the, you can say, the problem on the side of poet. Yeah? This is the problem on the side of poet, not the reader. This is the problem, first and second, you can say, is a problem on the side of reader. Yes, on the side of readers. This is the problem on the side of poet. So if poet has a kind of a defective scholarship, means he is not able to put the metaphors properly together, then this may happen. So if he is not aware about the traditions of writing, then this may happen there. Defective scholarship on the part of poet. Now we can argue that this may happen to readers as well. It may also happen to reader. While we are reading also, if we are having a lack of scholarship, understanding, then also it may happen. Scholarship means panditya, or you can say what we call it is better understanding of anything, better understanding, deep understanding of the topic that we are dealing with. That is, we call it scholarship. Yeah. Okay. So the fourth point is, what is the fourth one?
Difference in meaning of words in poetry and prose.
Difference
In meaning of.
Yes, in meaning of
Words in poetry
words
and
in
poetry
poetry
and prose.
and prose. Okay. Now this will be very interesting to see. This will be very interesting to observe that how this might happen. So when we see the words, and how do we see that the words can mean separate things when it is in poetry and then in prose. So this point you have to keep in mind, and you have to give more examples to see that how this is happening. When you analyze a poem, this you can always keep in mind, that if the same words are in prose, it may mean something else. So coming back here, four types of misunderstanding in the language of poetry. That is what I. Richards says. First one, misunderstanding of the sense of poetry. So if I'm not getting overall sense of the poem, then it may happen, and it may happen when I am doing careless reading. I'm not doing textual close reading of the text. Then it may happen that my reading is careless or intuitive, and I may not capture the proper sense of the meaning. Second is over literal. So if I do prosaic reading of the language of poetry, then I can face a problem here. Second and fourth, you will see here, are interconnected with each other. Yes, they are interconnected with each other. Prosaic over literal or prosaic reading. And third one is defective scholarship. It can be also on the side of poets also. That if they do not understand metaphors properly, if they do not have the idea about the semantic fields, semantic fields of fills, then also they may get confused that I am mixing the metaphors, and that may confuse the reader, and the readers will not be able to visualize. They will not be able to visualize the image. And so it will become hurdle in understanding poem. It may become hurdle, obstacle in understanding the sense of the poem also. And thus the final one is difference. The difference in the meaning of the words in poetry and prose, that plays a very interesting and vital role here. Okay, so theoretically, if we look at this idea, theoretically, if we look at this idea, then this is exactly what he wants to say here, theoretically. But as we know that I. Richards is dealing with practical criticism. Is not much interested in theoretical ideas, practical. So then he comes to poems, and he gives the poems to students and tells them that let us read this and let us see what meanings are we getting from these poems. Let us give a break into our recording here, and then in our next part, let us start reading some poems and try to see that how we understand what I. Richards wants to say. So in our next part, in our next session, we are going to talk about a couple of poems, try to read and how I. Richards has analyzed those poems on these 4 types of misunderstanding.